Hey, big love, star fam. I'm Michael from oneskyastrology. Welcome to February 2023's lunar cycle overview. There's the new moon, February 19th or 20th, depending on where you are in the world, and it's backed by the stars of Aquarius, leading around to a full moon, March 7th in Leo. And that's right, this is a sidereal astrology channel, so not the usual mainstream stuff. Nope, different stuff. Like in this tradition, we do it old school, and if it's happening in the stars of Aquarius, we boldly say that's Aquarius. And why, you might ask, would anyone look at that sky and just as boldly say that's happening in Pisces? This new moon here, sun and moon. Well, that's a long story, fam. And I tell that story on my website. There's a history to astrology and how the hell we seem to have gotten here. But for now, settle in, friends. Let's take a look at the sky for the new moon. The sun and moon are framed by the stars of constellation Aquarius, as is Saturn, who just recently moved into this sign after over 2 years transiting Capricorn. Mercury's hurrying through Capricorn just now, and Pluto is poised to enter constellation Capricorn, hovering here at the cusp, just finishing up Sag. Looking forward in the sky, we have Neptune, Venus, Jupiter, and Eris inhabiting Pisces. Uranus and the North Node are in Aries. Mars is in Taurus. The North Node is moving towards Pisces. Keep in mind, the North Node will move opposite the direction of the planets through the zodiac. And that brings up the South Node. It's going to be making its way through Virgo. And that's early Virgo because the nodes are moving clockwise, not counterclockwise like the planets. And here we have the 2D chart, the same skies, what we were just looking at. We have the aspects included now, and we can see captain's log, star date, 20th February for me. I'm here in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. And you can see, though, that that's happening very early in the morning. And for a lot of us, Earthlings, this new moon will happen on the 19th. Before we even get into talking about the dynamics of the new moon and the sort of template for this lunar cycle, I want to just mention that the new moon is a time of very low energy. It's a sort of down-tempo time where the best activities, the really well-supported activities, are planning, just resting, kind of strategizing, looking forward. It's not really a time when there's a lot of dynamic energy or tension to ride or access, as it were. And for people in behavioral health or criminal justice or educators, other people know that the opposite of full moon, the new moon, is usually a pretty chill time. The full moon is when you see increased hospitalizations, arrests, discipline problems, that you see around the high energy of the full moon. And as the lunar cycle pulses through the year, every cycle sort of touches on this. So we talk about the new moon as if it's a seed, what wants to emerge, the template for the whole thing. This is the blueprint. And when we take a look at the blueprint, we can see that new moon is as mentioned in Aquarius, and it's with the planet Saturn. Now, Saturn is a stabilizing and organizing force. And Aquarius is a visionary catalyst for the new, the next, whatever's needed, novelty, a lot of N words, but, and Saturn acts on the collective in a way that reflects the structure of society, while Aquarius is where like old things come to get a makeover. So Saturn is old things, and the combination is going to help us rethink our strategies. The prevailing wind is going to be one of renovation, broadly speaking. New moons, when they conjoin Saturn, they've long been known to be a test of emotional strength. It's likely this cycle that feelings will be hurt, and you may experience that or witness it happening in others. This is just a really common effect of luminaries and Saturn coming together. Emotions will either be blunted or dampened or depressed by Saturn. That's very typical. But Aquarius isn't overly emotional, so these processes at play, they may not really bring out that deep side of the moon, that feeling, emotional side. But whenever you get Saturn and the moon close to each other, Saturn brings the kind of feelings of like guilt and shame, fears and doubts. And Aquarius brings anxiety because it always wants change. It always wants to rebel. It always wants to push against and say, no, 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 I have a better way. And sometimes it does, but there's always an anxiety to change. There's always the stress of change. So Aquarius brings the stress of change. And it brings anxiety, and it's resonant with the subconscious. Right? We talk about the unconscious and the conscious, but these are things that are sort of in the liminal, the gray area, represented by Aquarius and also Uranus in a chart. And everything just below the surface gets activated by Aquarius. This is something that is one of the reasons for the anxiety that's often produced by Aquarius. So that's a sort of breakdown of these two energies. I think Saturn does pretty well in Aquarius and has been given rulership at different times in history of Aquarius. Before the discovery of Uranus, Aquarius was Saturn's territory, flat out. As with all Saturn contacts, the outcome, for you as an individual or a group, that, any independent entity, the outcome is going to be completely dependent on how responsible that entity's been, how responsible you've been and how much you've honored your commitments, how much you've honored your responsibilities, how disciplined, how reserved, how patient, how persistent and perseverant. These are Saturn's questions, because Saturn's the lord of time and karma, and Saturn doesn't just come around and just because he's in a bad position with the moon, everyone has a bad day on the same day. No, of course, it doesn't work that way. What we do know about Saturn is that anything that has been evaded, Saturn will bring up to the surface. And Aquarius is going to help with that, because bringing things up to the surface from the unexpected and uncharted depths is what the water bearer does. So, again, when we have an alignment, the luminaries conjoin Saturn, what we're seeing is the completion of a karmic cycle here. And how we've been through, and this isn't, there's no simple arithmetic here, like, if you've been good for 7 years, you'll have a nice lunar cycle. No, it's not that easy. It's more like Saturn does move in 7-year cycles. That's when he will, from this point, in 7 years, Saturn will be square. And in 14 and a half or so, opposite. So Saturn cycles do move around. The dynamic points of them are in 7 years. So in a lot of ways, this could be anything that is relative to any Saturn cycle in your life. So wherever you are, I'm in a Saturn moon phase that the Vedic astrology wisdom calls Sadesati, which is not something I'm going to explain here, but that means this Saturn cycle is going to act differently on me. It's going to affect my moon more heavily. So there will be an element of feeling that I may experience that other people, what's activated for them may be very detached in the nature of Aquarius or stoic in the nature of Saturn himself. I do think there's a lot of support here. I see overwhelmingly positive and harmonious aspects. Almost everything here is working in some degree of harmony with, almost everything else. And we do see a couple aspects here. Uranus aspects, a square to Mercury, and a semi-square, very close semi-square. It looks like 20 minutes to Venus. That would be close enough to make an impact, to be significant. And the only other harsh aspect we see out of everything happening in the sky is the clearing off of Pluto square Eris, which, of course, if you've been following this channel or astrology off the mainstream, paying attention to Eris, you'll know this correlates with COVID, precisely with the emergence of COVID-19. And was one of the main actors in Sagittarius back during the Saturn-Pluto conjunction, because this square at that time was very close to exact. And now as it wears off, it's one of the last, slowest moving artifacts of COVID. But as long as it's in effect, we're still going to see support in the ethers for the proliferation and continuation of higher levels of COVID than are going to become the new normal, is what we can pretty safely say. As long as this square, Pluto Eris, is in effect, we are still going to have energies resonant with that time, early 2020. So this too shall pass, and slowly, because it's Pluto and Eris. Now, Uranus being the only harsh aspects to inner planets is something we're going to touch on a little later. For now, I just want to bring up the high level of interconnected supportiveness. That even though this could be a time of like implementing new patterns, new cycles, trying to get new things going in Aquarius relative to Saturn's new placement here, it's gonna be pushed back against in a way. He's gonna adapt and renovate and mutate, and all of this is a little stressful. So it's good, very good to see. Very good to see all this support just interwoven into the karma of this lunar cycle. Something else I want to mention is some star contacts. We have Pegasus, the constellation Pegasus, pretty activated. Four bodies on stars in that constellation, in the degree of stars in that constellation, and We'll repeatedly see that the stars of Pegasus are taking a significant role in this lunar cycle. So let's take a look at that. Here we are, Pegasus, and we're in Stellarium now. For those who may not recognize this software, this Stellarium is a free and open source software, so you should definitely get it. It helps when you're wanting to learn about the skies, and you can see this is a little different than the charts we're looking at because I'm looking at this in real time and the date today is different than the 20th. We've been looking at the chart for February 20th. Today is almost 2 weeks prior. So we see the sun back in Capricornus. We're not talking about a sun in Aquarius yet. What I'm pulling up here, I don't want to confuse anyone. I'm trying to show Pegasus and the relevance of Pegasus. We'll talk a little about the mythology of Pegasus too. It's pretty interesting. Historically, Pegasus is astro trouble, and it sits between Aquarius and Pisces. Here's Pisces, and here's Aquarius, and it's north of the ecliptic. It has always been known to portend bad judgment, naivety, sadness, and the sidereal mythology of Pegasus is very beautiful in spite of its association with heartbreak. Pegasus is actually the child of the Gorgon Medusa, and it sprang from the blood of her severed neck as Perseus decapitated her. So that act is obviously symbolic of subjugating the wild, untamed, wrathful feminine. And Pegasus is symbolic of a sort of grace, a feminine grace, a beauty, a power. I wouldn't say forgiveness per se, but I would emphasize that something rather beautiful and good came from the murder of Medusa, having its origins in her power, her blood, and her spirit. I'd say that also this constellation is very close to the ecliptic and it ties Pisces to Aquarius. So as we move backwards through the zodiac, through the precession of the equinox and the evolution of the astrological ages, right? We're transitioning from Pisces to Aquarius, and Pegasus is sort of that bridge, is kind of representative of that. So, and we're still a long way off from the age of Aquarius. We're talking hundreds of years, and that's by sidereal reckoning. But it's activated here. The transition, the sign itself, and I just want to bring Pegasus into the conversation since it's going to be such a player. Its stars are going to be making some important contact. For this new moon, we have Venus, Neptune, Sun, and Moon on the stars of Pegasus, including Venus on Shiat, a star that is notorious, really closely associated with heartbreak, sorrow, loss. It's a star who teaches by taking. And not in the way that the South Node takes, you didn't really need that anyway, let's move on with your spiritual evolution kind of South Node attitude. But Shiat is just difficult. I've seen it be very challenging. So one thing we can do is be on our guard this cycle for relationship flare-ups, anything that might lead to relationship disharmony. And we can lean in to appreciating our partners, ourselves. And I say that because Venus and Neptune is very oriented to romantic love. But Venus, as she is oriented to one-on-one relationships, any I, thou, self-other dynamic. So we can really be on guard to just know that this is sort of in the air. This is in the air and not take it personally, and to lean into those good Venusian qualities that support and nurture the appreciation of other people's points of view, because that's what's going to be challenged this month, as we'll see. So like those Saturn contacts, Saturn, Moon, and Saturn Sun. Contact with any contact with fixed star Shiat, Beta Pegasus here, like the contact Venus is making, is reputed to bring tests of emotional strength and hurt feelings. We may want to be very, very, very well supported this month, as supported as we can be against these hurt feelings and tests of emotional strength. One thing about Saturn and Aquarius is it's almost never personal. With the Sun and Moon, it almost always feels personal. But the nature of this is really about, again, like that theme from last month, the greater good, right? The collective. This is what Saturn and Aquarius are reflecting. So just to take a brief look back at everything that we just sort of talked about, put it all together, we have Aquarius. It's emergent and catalytic, and there's a strong impulse with Saturn to very slowly organize ourselves and to generate stability. So I don't think we'll be flirting with new patterns too early. Saturn will delay and dampen the emergence of anything, but we may desire and feel a need, even a pressure, to be making changes, structural changes, systemic changes, the kind of changes that go to our patterns, our habits, our conditioned behavior. These are big Saturn words. Sometimes when Aquarius is activated, there's a real twilight feeling, and Saturn can dampen that, actually. So if you notice that, if you're very sensitive to energies, this may not feel the full Aquarian crispy tingle in your neck bones, but it's there. It's there. Saturn always sort of brings things to just a very stable, sturdy point. And just one last reminder on this one. Big Saturn could bring the karmic tab to the table, fam. And any important parts of life that we've been ignoring could come up and get our attention. They could really kind of come to collect. Got to pay your dues when Saturn's involved. So if you've been paying them, likely that you can continue the hard work of the development that Saturn represents in your life and keep it moving, And if you have been negligent or defaulted on things that you should have been paying towards, or in any sense, financially, sure, but also karmically, how are your relationships? How is your Saturn in Aquarius? How is your relationship to society? How is your doings with people? This is going to be really big, and this could come up anywhere where we've neglected ourselves. These growth edges could just get pushed front and center in our lives. So it's not the whole flavor of the cycle, not at all, but you'll see why I'm emphasizing some of the difficulties integrating as we move through, and we see what kind of relationships Mars ends up presenting through the rest of this cycle. And actually, on that note, I think we can jump to the waxing quarter moon. Start to look ahead, friends. So it's now 27th of February, and the moon has moved around to Taurus, sitting on Aldebaran, fixed star Aldebaran. Sun is about halfway through Aquarius. And before we get to the dynamics of the chart at the time of the waxing quarter moon, I just want to say that the intention of the waxing quarter moon, the sort of energy that it represents, is we can understand it relative to the cycle itself as we move around from a new to a full phase, we're building energy, right? This is on a sine wave. The new phase conjunction, symbolized by the new moon, is a low point, while the full phase opposition is a high energy point. So we're right at the middle, right, sort of at zero when we have a quarter moon, and the quarter moon presents us with a sun moon square. So this is a time of work. It's a time of rising energy, and that gets expressed as effort towards the goals of the cycle. You know, the energy has to get from low to high. I mean, we got to get there. This party isn't going to start itself. So it, you know, we all participate in this dance. It's one of the great mysteries of life. And this is a time, the first quarter moon, of outwardly dynamic energy. There's a lot of tension, a lot of charge, a lot of potential, but it's focused outwardly. So we can think of it that way. We have with the moon and Aldebaran a certain organizing power and a certain emphasis on self-relationship. And those come with Taurus. Those come with the stars of Taurus. The moon is sextile to a Venus-Jupiter conjunction in Pisces that I really like. And this is going to bring a lot of ease to the power of a moon on Aldebaran with Mars in Taurus. It's going to bring a blessing, and it's going to calm and soften and make things more gentle. That's what Jupiter, Venus from Pisces will do in harmonious relationship. And you know, we may at this time actually have a great blessing when it comes to communicating with others. I know I've mentioned Venus on Shiat and Saturn and hurt feelings, but here with Moon sextile to Venus to 9 minutes, it's very close. This is a very significant sextile. This could be a time of ease, and that might be a calm before the storm, because when the Moon is with Mars like this, when we see a conjunction for one of the squares, we know that for the other dynamic points of this cycle, there's gonna be other stress relationships with Mars. Before I show you that, the full moon is really a great example. We gotta just kind of put this in one place. What we're seeing here, interpersonal interactions of all kinds are favored. We may be able to define boundaries in ways that we weren't able to previously. We may be able to appreciate people, including ourselves, in new ways. That's a Venus Moon artifact. And Venus offers a lot of protection from harsh elements with the sextile. It's like her classic blessing aspect. And from Pisces with Jupiter, there's a lot of spiritual insight and inner wealth here. So there's a lot of understanding, and there's a lot of forgiveness. That's Piscean, both of those, for ourselves and others. In Taurus, especially for ourselves. So this is a great time to really hold those energies close and understand that the two benefics and the moon are in very good relationship, and this should lead to some good interpersonal dynamics around the first quarter moon. And then, friends, as we get to the full moon, we start to see things expressed in terms that usually correlate to a little more upheaval and dynamism. So we're here, it's the full moon, it's March 7th, 2023, and The full moon is the phase of a lunar cycle where the fruit shows. I've talked about the sine wave. You can get that idea. You can get that that's a high point. I've talked about some of the effects that emergency medical technicians, police, psych workers, and teachers all know about the full moon. It's a time of high chaos, high activity. And it's not that the moon is or isn't chaotic. It's that the opposition is a very charged expression of polarization and dynamic tension that not everybody is equipped to balance. So one of the things that we can do is to understand the basic dynamics of the full moon and the balancing act that it's asking for. Right? So here we have a moon in late Leo, and it's opposite a sun in Aquarius. And that sun in Aquarius is framed by a stellium of conjunctions. Neptune, Mercury, and Saturn are all playing a role in the expression of this sun, and they're conjoined by degree. We're T-squared, sun and moon are T-squared to Mars on El Noth. El Noth is the horn of the bull, as in the expression, mess with the bull, you get the horns. Definitely relevant here, definitely. And we do see Uranus making a supportive trine, close supportive trine to the moon, and close sextile to sun. So we have antagonism from Mars and support from Uranus. Now Uranus is in Aries, so Mars is his ruler. And there's just with the sun in Aquarius, there's just going to be a highly unpredictable element to the full moon. There's going to be, I don't want to use scary language around Aquarius or Uranus in Aries, but these have an unpredictable quality. They have an emergent quality that's sort of explosive. Like, you don't expect what's going to happen. That's what happens when Uranus comes through. The unexpected. So we may see things that I'm not going to try to predict here in terms of particular activities, but what we can say about the energies at play here is that activities focused around this emergence and development, new energies. It's kind of a breakout sort of opportunity to be doing new things, trying. We have with North Node in Aries new patterns of personhood, and that's supported by Uranus. We have the same as the last full moon in early Leo, which I said was a great time to try on new things for size, new ways of being, new ways of selfhood and personhood. If you took that and ran with it, or if you found yourself sort of feeling a need to change, like, I got to drop that habit, that just does me no good. You realize that I'm going to replace it with this, and you move on. If that was sort of thing was happening for you last month, it's very likely to continue with new Leonian ways to express yourself creatively and generatively. And again, the trine to Uranus is going to increase the explosive, emergent, unpredictable, unique, just very eccentric qualities that this whole thing might take on. And that's going to be resonated by everything in Aquarius. That kind of letting your freak flag fly is very Leo Aquarius axis. The axis is one to do something new, right? Do something new relative to your conditioned behavior, the pattern of change that you're going through relative to your old conditioned behavior. Because if you're tuned into Saturn, Saturn's emergence last month into Aquarius is just going to, when a big planet, slow planet changes signs, man, you're going to feel it. You're going to feel it. And Saturn into Aquarius is going to kickstart slowly and very subtly, and you'll have to watch to notice it. But if you look back and you think, well, you know, what did need to give last month? What needed to change? You know, not for me to say you will or won't find anything, but I encourage you to look. And if that's been happening for you, keep it up, because here's another opportunity. And we may experience pushback. We may experience opposition to this, even though it's supported, even though it's necessary. And I would suggest, in fact, that if we get any pushback in a Mars T-square Sun Moon way, and this could be aggressive or oppositional pushback from others who are stubbornly, that's a Taurus word, entrenched. We have entrenchment is a Saturn theme and a Taurus theme, and we have Mars here just kind of pugilistically willing to push back on that dynamism between self-expression in a new way and old habits and the need to change them. I'd say with these T-squares from Mars, it's a very cautionary tale not to push things too far. Don't push too hard. Appreciating other people's points of view, especially if you're doing a new thing that kind of flips the script on them, yeah, that's going to go a very long way this month. So we've had a big shift lately. We have Pluto flirting with Capricorn. We have Saturn, having finished Capricorn, move into Aquarius, and we have the Sun, right? What's the other one? The Sun, who just finished up Capricorn season, now moving through Aquarius. So there's this shift and emphasis on Capricornian energies and the transition, the changing of them, the need to renovate or redo or evaluate them, and they're up for review. Now that Saturn's in Aquarius, old patterns are up for review. So as we emerge doing new and different things that may serve us in our lives better, expecting some pushback, expecting that people are going to dig their heels in stubbornly, and that you'll get the horns if you mess with the bull. Have some subtlety, have some grace, have some tact, and don't or you can work to avoid these complications by leaning into this kind of love, this kind of universal love, and understanding the greater context that these long-standing entrenched habits arose out of. Very different historical and cultural necessities than we have today. Very different understandings. The whole framework, the whole semantic framework that people were using to address the human experience, so different than it was today. At the time of the arisal of some of these social taboos and norms and just the cultural conditioning that we don't even question. So we can lean into Neptune's territory, Pisces here, because it's very supported this month. This is where the blessings are coming from. So anything spiritual or having to do with accepting the oneness of things, the sameness of things, right? To see, if I were born in those times and raised with those views, I'd very likely be subject to those unfortunate forces too. These are very Piscean attitudes. Forgiveness, very Piscean attitude. Or we could dig in, or we could take the Mars role and remember that, we can wear the horns too. With Uranus in Aries playing a role of support to the moon, we may expect opposition, and we may dig in order to make the needed changes, to push through, to confront the systems or hierarchies, or orders, or institutions that may unjustly or wrongly hold us back. That might be, sometimes there's no way out but through. And with Mars here, if it's a fight and it's a fight, well, a lot of good Venus in Pisces is going to do. You may want to lean in, put the horns on, and defend your territory. But either way, this is a moon that's going to feature the Leo Aquarius axis, and it's an axis of self-discovery and bringing what we discover out for the benefit of others, in the benefit of society, in a humanitarian way. So if we stay focused on that, we can stay up on the wave, Oh yeah, the waning quarter moon, March 14th, 2023. Could be March 15th. It looks like this is really late in the day, and could be March 15th for others in the world. Waning quarter moon, yeah, the intention of the waning quarter moon. Where is the energies? Which way is the wind blowing? What's happening? Well, we're going down the sine wave, from the fullness back down to the next newness. So it's a dynamic charge because of the sun moon square, but it's a dynamism that's inward facing this time. Now with waxing quarter moon, we had an outward facing dynamism. With a waning quarter moon, inward facing dynamism. And you see that in birth charts. There's not all sun moon squares are the same. Waning quarter sun moon squares, the people are going to be very reflective, very good at pattern recognition, at taking things in, at looking back, at assessing. Not to say that they won't be hard workers, but the basic orientation is to kind of like observe and strategize first. Where waxing quarter moon folks that's the driven energy. They hardly have time to look back. Actually, they get that later in life, and it's not that they aren't reflective. I was born under a waxing quarter moon, and I would consider myself reflective. I'd also say that I conform to that rule of sun moon squares. So it's just an interesting tidbit, a little bit of astrology rabbit hole for you. Let's come back up. Let's come back up from the rabbit hole, folks. We don't like rabbit holes on this channel. Unless we're going down them very consciously. That was sort of an aside. That wasn't in the script, fam. So bear with me. Yeah. So we're settling now. It's inwardly dynamic. We're kind of getting ready for the next new moon. And we're kind of enjoying the fruits of the full moon. What we worked so hard for and then enjoyed. And now it's like, And we can take stock, see what worked, what didn't, and start to make way for Pisces. So the moon is on the Shaula-Ras-Al-Hog axis. These are two big stars. I mean, we could really go hog on this chart. You can go hog on any chart. There's always astrology is like a fractal science with endless layers. But there's a lot here for a waning quarter. So I'm going to take a little time, try and break it down. Ras-Al-Hog is... And here we are. Here's the ecliptic. Now we have Virgo, Libra, Scorpio, Ophiuchus, Sagittarius, Capricornus. And we can see Ras-Al-Hog is the head of the snake charmer, the most important star in Ophiuchus, and a significant effect to bodies on the ecliptic that pass this degree. And Shaula is the tail of the scorpion. So it's a moment of choice. It could be a moment of choice for a lot of people, and that is something that's going to relate to any tension or aggression or conflict that had come up around, all this organization, habits, conformity, and repatterning of that conditions the unquestioned, and now in Aquarius it's being questioned. Any feathers this ruffles, we may find ourselves this lunar cycle. I mean, we may have to make a choice about how we're going to organize ourselves in a new way, and what it means. And there may be severance, correlate with a Fucus Scorpio. There may be loss. There may be conflict, continued conflict with the Sun now, Sun, Neptune. And here, if we didn't pay a lot of attention to the stars, but if we look, Neptune's still on Alpha Pegasus. And the Sun hasn't come around to, the Sun is on Merkab, Alpha Pegasus, and that's really emphasizing this sort of like strange energy that Pegasus reflects that we talked about earlier. Sun with Neptune will make everything very sensitive. If you are sensitive already, your sensitivities will be heightened, and if you're not sensitive, you might have weird feelings. No problem, but one of the things this comes to bear on is the choice. The choice that needs to be made correlate with Ras Al-Hag Shaula and this axis to Mars and Taurus, reflecting this sort of stubborn association with the horns of the bull. Or friends, we could flip the script and say that Mars in Taurus is even opposite the moon. This may make us feel really competitive and angry and grumpy at this time. Mars opposite moon often does. But this is reflecting these lessons that it's teaching us from Taurus, are definitely reflecting our need to appreciate ourselves, our subconscious and unconscious desires for our own truth, or for our own genius or our own higher purpose. That's really what all of this is about. Whether we're riding it or it's riding us, this is life bringing out. That's the language here. That's just because of everything that's happening. I'm not going to try and break it down and make it make a logical sense, but this is an emergence. This period of time, these months are a shift, and they're a time to square up with our values, Taurus, our self-appreciation, Taurus, our world. This is where the waxing moon was, and that's the work that needs to happen this cycle, self-appreciation, in order to come out, express ourselves differently. And now in the waxing quarter phase, it looks like we're going to have a lot to consider. This looks like a very, very charged lunar cycle with Aquarius and Mars playing the key sort of dynamic antagonist roles. And those two actors are the dynamic antagonists in the sky, Mars and Uranus. They love to shake it up. So Fucus is where we feel out the bigger picture. We're moving towards Pisces and the bigger picture. But in a Fucus, we get the message. Oh, there's a bigger picture, right? But we haven't moved past that galactic center. We haven't, achieved that kind of death experience that will open us up to the consciousness of the great big mind. That's Pisces. So Fucus is a weird place. It's a cuspy place all on its own, and with such a loaded Pisces here. I mean, here look at these bodies in Pisces. We have a lot going on for this last quarter. This is a good position from which to contemplate longer periods of time and make sense of them. Another theme of this lunar cycle, and our last year, the last few years, your life, the modern era. Honestly, take a 6 or 7 thousand year period and just hold it to the light of Saturn in Aquarius, needing to take stock. Right, it's inventory time. What needs to change? What needs to go? And Pisces and Neptune allow for us to hold this in the light of eternity, these considerations in the light of eternity, in a timeless light. That's another way to think about it, that with this Piscean influence, we can think about sameness and timelessness and very elevated, what gets called transcendental and spiritual concepts. And all of this is arising out of and indicating a potential to bump heads, to argue, to spar, to just could be conflict, and it could involve stubbornness. So expect it. And at the same time, here for this sort of like decision-making moment, we have Venus trine the moon from Pisces, very indicative of being able to appreciate other people's experience very universally. It's Venus in Pisces. And Venus trine moon is known, no matter what stars are behind it, to help you appreciate other people's points of view, appreciate other people's positions, and they help other people appreciate yours. And these are transits, so this is just universal. So Pisces, and Merkab, Alpha Pegasus. Let's get to the next new moon in 21st of March, 2023, in the time machine. Looking forward, and it's Pisces time, and the Sun and Moon are on Shiat. The Sun and Moon are on Shiat now. So any kind of interpersonal Venus kind of activity that happens through late February, early March, that could lead into the theme of the next lunar cycle. So another good reason to just be on guard, be warned, be careful, be caring, and hide your claws. The wise predator hides its claws, even if you are going to dig in and you have to make your point and you have it in for somebody. And keep your teeth in your mouth. It's not always good to show them. That's some good advice that I would have for almost anyone this cycle. I'm not saying don't draw the lines. Don't draw your boundaries. Don't make your points. I'm not saying that. I'm saying the wise eagle hides his claws. The next new moon, Mars is on Orion's club. Isn't that interesting? Orion's club, and we're squaring up to Pisces on Shiat. So we have Venus on the North Node. So we went from Venus on Shiat last month to Venus on North Node. This is going to be interesting. It's going to be some special challenges these couple months, and we're going to have some special medicine. Yeah, fam, it's YouTube. You know what to do. Show some love. And if you have a Facebook account and you want to hang with the gang, then join us on Sidereal Revolution. That's a group for true sidereal astrology. Anyone, practitioners, students, interested parties, lurkers, all kinds of astrology nerds, dorks, geeks, punks, freaks, the like. Demented or inspired? Come decide for yourself. Gang, I'll be finishing up a series of podcasts with Rio Arletta, a cosmic wizard, talking about oppositions in the natural sky. Super cool conversation if you're into that. And we'll be finishing up the last of a 6-episode series, and so it's a pretty deep conversation. Link in the description. Cosmic wizard. And then you know, I have a website and I have a practice, and I love to do sessions. So, and visit my website, oneskyastrology.com. I am a true sidereal astrologer in the evolutionary astrology stream of through Mark Jones. He was a student of Jeffrey Wolf Green's, who received evolutionary astrology in strange Sanskrit dreams from Swami Sri Yukteswar. So that's the sort of lineage. I mutated. None of those people used a true sidereal zodiac. So I apply the logic of that system, the profound logic of that system, to this zodiac. That's the basic. If you want to learn more, please check it out. Check it out. Is it there? Yeah, it's there. oneskyastrology.com, and learn about why everyone else in the mainstream astrology world thinks that this is like a Pisces moon. Yeah, it's such a long story. It's on my website. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, and bless you. And ciao. Till next time.